Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today for our talk on Princess Cruises Alaska in conjunction with AAA. My name is Kate Caridio, and I am the Business Development Manager in the area for Princess Cruises, and I work very closely with AAA Northway. Princess Cruises is the love boat. If any of you remember the television series back in the late 70s, 80s, we are them. So we have all of these guys, except unfortunately Captain Steuben, Gavin McLeod, still work for Princess and represent our brand. And it's very much a part of who we are and what we do on board. We're all about the love. And we absolutely love AAA Travel. AAA Travel is one of the top producing agencies for Princess in Alaska in the country. So you're working with folks that have a vast amount of knowledge of our product and specifically in Alaska. And more specifically, our AAA Northway crew, who knows it all. And you are in great hands when you're working with them. As I mentioned, Princess is all about love, and we absolutely do love Alaska. I always say I was supposed to be a history teacher, so I always kind of go back to facts. And I want to point out some things about Alaska. Alaska, of course, is our 49th state, 60,000 square miles or 365 million acres. There's 5,000 glaciers, 3,000 rivers, 3 million lakes. It's 2 times the size of Texas, 12 times the size of New York State. And New York State, if any of you have driven it, is not a small state. So imagine doing it from top to bottom 12 times. It's home to 19 of the 20 tallest mountains in the United States. It has the highest concentration of bears and bald eagles on Earth. There are more caribou than people. No skunks or snakes, which is a big plus in my book. 1/2 of the U.S. national park land is in Alaska. Half of the United States national parks are in Alaska. That's something. More people have pilot's licenses than they do driver's licenses, which is kind of a fun fact because it's the best way to get around. But why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because if you're going to go to Alaska, you want to see as much as you possibly can because it is rich in beauty, mountains, national parks, and land. And here is just a good visual of the state of New York in the state of Alaska, which is kind of neat to see. Now, why people go to Alaska? They want to see glaciers, they want to see mountains, they want to view wildlife. And Princess Cruises can give you the best opportunity on land and sea to see all of that. We are rated #1 cruise line in Alaska by our contemporaries or our travel advisors. We win awards every year. More guests choose Princess for Alaska than any other cruise line. We actually have 7 ships in Alaska during the season, which runs from May to September, excuse me. We have 7 ships. Most have 1 or 2, so we can give you a lot more offerings or opportunities or options to see the state how you might want to see it. And why Princess in Alaska? Again, I'm making pretty bold statements. We're the best, but let me explain why. We've been there close to 20 years. We have top-rated cruises and in-depth cruise tours. Now, a cruise tour is when you take the 7-day cruise and add land onto it. You can go from 3 days to 10 days on land, but it's always a 7-day cruise. So obviously, the more time you add, the more you get to see, and the further and deeper you get into the state of Alaska. We have award-winning programs on board our ship, our North to Alaska program, which brings the destination on board. We have local experts coming on board to do demonstrations, to cook for you, to talk about what you're seeing on board, and it's amazing. We've got park rangers with us on board the ship when we're sailing in Glacier Bay. We have naturalists on board for the entire voyage to explain and show different things, again, as you're sailing by on the coastline or in the water. We do the deadliest catch, which kind of is a creepy thing because you can see what is swimming around in the water. Well, in Alaska, we're not going to swim with them, but it's something kind of cool to see what's in there. One of our most popular programs is our Puppies in the Piazza. These are actually just puppies that are in training, sled dogs to run the Alaska Iditarod. So we bring them on board the ship and you get to interact and play with them, and kind of learn more about what they go through in their training programs. Of course, we have fresh seafood on board. Salmon, if there's a way to cook salmon, we know how to do it on board the ship. And it's one of the most popular things when you're in Alaska, and we actually win awards for it. So it's pretty cool. There's also Alaska beer experiences, ciders, different things. So anything we can do to let you know you're in Alaska from the minute you step on board, we absolutely do it. We have great kids and family program, a junior ranger program for the little guys on board the ship, where they get a badge that they have gone through Glacier Bay. They dissect scary things on board. There's all activities for them on all Princess ships, but in Alaska, again, we're going to focus on that. And then our Adventures Ashore programs, where again, you get to get close and personal with the people in Alaska, from our family programs to our just individual. This is our 2025 Alaska fleet. As I mentioned, we've got 7 ships sailing. Some ships do what we call an inside passage, and some do a voyage of the glacier, but you can sail out of Seattle, San Francisco, Vancouver, or Whittier. Now, Whittier is a port of call, but it is about an hour and a half away from Anchorage. So Anchorage would be the city you might fly in or out of, but Whittier is actually the embarkation, I'm sorry, not a port of call, the embarkation or disembarkation port. Now, how to visit Alaska with Princess, and this is one of our pride and joys, is that we give you multiple ways. We have round trip cruises, again, inside passage, one-way cruises where you start in one port and end in another, or our most popular cruise tours where you add a 7-day cruise with the train and the lodges. Again, here's my teacher and me. Here's a map. So you get to see an inside passage cruise would be in the blue, where you would start from Seattle or Vancouver, sail through the inside passage, hit these ports of call, and come back down into Seattle or Vancouver. It's very nice. I've got 4 ships that do this from, again, San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver. So it gives you options here. But if you notice on the map, you're staying on that coast of Canada. And Alaska is above Anchorage. I mean, this is all Alaskan cities, but the heart of Alaska is above Anchorage. So by doing this inside passage, you're kind of sticking yourself on the coast of Canada and not getting farther in. So now we have northbound and southbound cruises or cruise tours when you do the one ways. So what I always suggest to people, if you can only do the cruise, you can still start from Vancouver, sail north, hit those same ports, but then you continue on and you get into College Fjord, Prince William Sound, and into the Kenai area, docking in Whittier. And again, remember, Whittier is your airport would be Anchorage. So this is an option, and at least you get into more of the heart of Alaska by doing these one-way voyages. And the only difference here is you start from one city and end in another, but you have to fly home anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now, if you were doing the land, this is where you could kick off the land right from Whittier, and then you would move on to go up into Denali, McKinley, maybe Fairbanks, into Anchorage, Copper River Lodge. This map shows you where our lodges are. You can see by the red stars or the red mark at Fairbanks. So I just want to impress upon you how big the state is and how much there is to see. And again, we should have that notice. So our exclusive Direct to the Wilderness program is where you have the 7-day cruise and again, add the land. And the Direct to the Wilderness is our Princess Rail service. And you can see these are domed rail cars with open air platforms on the second level. And there is also a dining car on the second level that you can have fresh food prepared for you as you are watching this beautiful scenery go by. And that's what you see. So the train portion is as exciting as the cruise because you're really following the route of the historic Alaska Railroad. And there's a shot of the dining car. So nice, fresh food prepared. Now you travel through Alaska on the land portion by rail and by motor coach. So it just depends which leg you go. But here's a Princess motor coach to give you an idea. Also very roomy and comfortable and great sight lines. And again, here's the shot of our Princess Wilderness Lodges. Now, we are the only cruise line that has our own wilderness lodges that were built, run, and operated by Princess. We have 5. We're the only ones. Most just use a third party's properties. And here's a shot of our Fairbanks Princess Lodge. So Fairbanks itself is the city with the widest temperature spread of any city on earth, meaning it can be negative 66 to 99 degrees. It is that dramatic, not in the same day, of course, but you could open your eyes and it be in the mid 40s and end up in the 70s, 80s by afternoon. So it does have a wide range, not that drastic, but it is very interesting. Now, what you see here, when you're in Fairbanks or you're at the Fairbanks Lodge, you have lots of opportunities where people can go panning for gold. We've got Discovery Riverboat, where it's actually a stern wheeler paddle boat that takes you up and down the river, and you have great sights and you visit native villages. And it's a really interesting place to visit. There we go. And then we would go, I'm just following a random path on the land portion. So the next stop could be Denali Princess Wilderness Lodge. So Denali Princess Wilderness Lodge is 1 mile from Denali National Park. 1 mile. So we are at the north end of Denali National Park. The lodge itself overlooks the Nianu River. There's hot tub shops, dinner theater, of course, restaurants. It's really an unbelievable place to be. But the big draw here is the Denali National Park, where you can go in and see a lot of animals. But this just gives you an idea of the park itself. And again, there's the river and there's some restaurants. And of course, some optional land excursions that you can take. You can go whitewater rafting, you can do ATV or quad riding, all different things. Okay. When we're at Denali, as I mentioned, our big focus is on Denali National Park. Now, Denali National Park is 6 million acres. A tour of the park itself is included for you, and we have the natural history tour or the tundra tour. The natural history tour is a 5-hour tour throughout the park, and the tundra is 8. Of course, if you do the tundra, you get farther into the park itself. You ride in the park on school buses, and you can kind of see here's the map of the park itself. There's only one main road into the park. They tried to pave it years ago. It's very little bit is paved because they can't keep up with it itself. It's kind of, you can imagine in the winter months, the weather they get. But the big draw here is the Big 5, seeing the native animals inside the park itself. There is a visitor center where you can get information on the park. And I always tell people the visitor center itself runs a couple of tours during the day to their in-park dog sledding demonstration, where you can actually take a bus from the visitor center up deep within the park and visit their dogs that are, again, being trained for the Iditarod, and you have up close and personal contact with them. After Denali area, your next stop might be Mount McKinley Princess Wilderness Lodge. Now, the big draw here is that it is 41 miles from Mount Denali, which is the highest peak in North America. So Mount Denali, highest peak in North America, and that's why people love to go here. We are the only game in town here. So Mount McKinley Princess Lodge is the only lodge around this area. It is 146 acres within Denali National Park, but it borders the south side of the park itself. It's all about the mountain when you're here that people want to see this beautiful scenery. We have a treehouse that was built by the Treehouse Masters of Discovery Network at the park itself. So gives you spectacular views of the mountain. And there you go. That is Denali Mountain. It is absolutely breathtaking. And people will sit on the porch of the main lodge just staring at the mountain. So I just took you through what would be called a southbound cruise tour, meaning you started the land first and then you're going to go on the ship. So we've just done the land, and those were the cities that I was showing you. And now to jump on the ship. And as I mentioned to you, the train is right at the cruise terminal. So you simply cross the street and you would board your ship. They check you in on board the train and you start sailing. So it's very exciting because you're so close by, and there's that shot again. And one of the first stops that you would make would be with our North to Alaska program. As I mentioned, some of the things going on board with the puppies, but we also have Libby Riddles coming on board the ship, who was the first woman to win the Alaska Iditarod. You'll see her down on the bottom left with the dog. And as I said, she was the first woman to win the Alaska Iditarod in the 90s, and she comes on and does a presentation. We have somebody come on in Skagway, the puppies as well, and as I mentioned, all the naturalists and onboard folks. But here are our ports of call: Juneau, Skagway, and Ketchikan, and you saw those on the map before. But our first stop would be Glacier Bay National Park. Now, you actually don't stop there. It's a sailing experience. You come into Glacier Bay National Park. A park ranger boards the ship as you're coming in. That is the law of the United States National Park Service. The park itself stretches 3.2 million acres across from St. Elias and Fairweather mountain ranges to the end of the fjords. Access into Glacier Bay National Park is extremely limited. On all of our cruise tour programs, Princess has access into the park itself. It is home to humpback whales, sea otters, porpoises, and harbor seals. It is spectacular. It is undescribable, truly. There's a hush over the ship as we're in here for a few hours. People are lining the rails and their balconies, just looking at this majestic beauty. It is something to see. And sometimes there's no words needed, but that is an actual shot of our ship in Glacier Bay. People on board will point out when animals become visible. You can see a lot of the seals and porpoises sitting on the rocks, but they'll point things out so you can know and where to look. I always suggest that people bring binoculars to Alaska because a lot of the stuff is in the water and it's easier to see. As I'm getting older, I find binoculars are a great help in order to see things. And that's our onboard park ranger. The first port of call doing a southbound cruise tour would be Skagway, which is known as the gateway to the Klondikes. It retains the feel from the gold rush era. This was the last town the miners were in before they went out into that treacherous weather in search of gold. It is preserved as a National Historic Park, and you can see the rustic boardwalk and frontier-style storefronts there. One of the biggest attractions here is White Pass Rail. Was built in 1898, kind of towards the end of the Klondike Gold Rush, but it follows the path that those in search of gold took. It is the narrowest, oldest railroad in the world. So when you're on it, it's kind of a neat experience, but it is narrow, but it is one of the most popular sites there. But this is the view right outside of Skagway itself. It's amazing. This is just walking down and seeing the view. It's just spectacular. It really is. And I took this shot myself. These are salmon swimming upstream. Right as again, I was walking in town and there's streams and you see the salmon fighting to get up. It's kind of neat. Now we have Juneau. And Juneau is the state capital of Alaska. It is the only state capital that is landlocked, meaning you can only get there by air or sea. You cannot drive into Juneau. Mount Juneau and Mount Roberts provide the gorgeous backdrop. You've got Mount Roberts Tramway, which is downtown Juneau, which takes you up 1,800 feet above the city. So it's a nice way to get a good aerial view there. One of the more popular things here is Mendenhall Glacier, which is 13 miles long. It's about 10, 15 minutes outside of Juneau itself. And everyone knows the big draw is Tracy's King Crab Shack in town, in the town of Juneau, where people line up to get these crab legs from morning until the ship pulls out. Is very, very popular. Next stop, we would have Ketchikan. Ketchikan is known as the city on stilts, also known as salmon capital of the world or the first city, because as you're sailing north into Alaska, this would be the first city you would hit as you're coming in. It is the southernmost Alaska port city. So it's very fun. It's a city on stilts. It's a great fun city to walk around, but very well known for whale watching. And people love to do that. I love to show this shot. This is my son going fishing in Ketchikan, the city of Ketchikan. You're almost guaranteed to always catch fish, and they'll offer to send the fish home, or you can have them cooked right on board. So it's kind of a neat thing. He's done this every time he's been to Alaska. He has to show us his fish shot. But it's probably one of the most popular shore excursions itself. And then you're cruising the Inside Passage, which is just, again, breathtaking and beautiful. And peering over the side, you can see so many animals in the water. People ask me, what is the best time to go in Alaska? And every time from May to September has something to see. I always say the animals come out of hibernation in May and June. Fishing is prevalent the whole time, but highest in June and July, you'll see. The sun stays out the longest in June and July. It can be out 21, 22 hours. You've got the best shot of the northern lights in late August, September. And then the rates are usually lower, and this is no surprise. When the kids are in school, the pricing goes down. So May, early June, and then late August into September, you're going to find your better pricing there. And I like to just show with the weather, I have been on Alaska ships where people are swimming often because it can get up into the high 70s, 80s there. It's not, people imagine that you're always bundled up in jackets, but it's really not the case, especially when you're on the cruise and doing the ports on the cruise portion. We're going to skip that. That was a video that's not going to work, so we're going to skip it. So I'm just giving you other shots. I want you to be aware with AAA, and as I said to you, they know their stuff. But AAA and Princess, because our relationship is so strong, on any cruise you book with AAA with Princess, if you're in a balcony stateroom above, you get a shore excursion credit and an onboard credit to spend on board the ship. And that can be for shore excursions. It can be for the spa. It can be for a specialty dinner. So by working with AAA, you get these extra perks on board any Princess cruise, but it's, of course, Alaska. And I also like to point out, AAA has its own exclusive cruise tour. When you're doing the land, The meals aren't included as they are with the cruising. So you can add on a meal package or you can just pay as you go. But with AAA, again, because of our partnership, they have exclusive tours. They have 11-night tours and 12-night tours. So what that means, it's 7-night cruise and either 4 or 5 nights on the land, but their tours include a lot of the meals. So keep those in mind when you're talking to your AAA advisor on talking about a Princess cruise. You want to mention, hey, I know you guys have your own cruise tours, and they'll show you the options there. And one goes to Anchorage, one goes to Fairbanks. So it gives you a lot of options. And there are a number of other cruise tours that you can look at. As I said, you can spend up to 10 days on land. So it just depends what you want to see. Kenai Fjords National Park is a big highlight for folks because you get into Resurrection Bay and Kenai Fjords National Park. They always say Kenai Fjords or Resurrection Bay is what Denali is for sea wildlife. So you have the best shot of seeing so much in the waters in the Resurrection Bay inside Kenai Fjords National Park. So it's a fun, interesting place to be. You can choose your own cruise tour if you want to host for the entire way through, where the meals are included and you have an escort from beginning to end on the land, or hosted, where the meals aren't included. You have a person on the train and then at each lodge and then somebody else. So it's not the same person, but different the shorter park tour, but still a great option. And again, you can see up to 4 national parks on a Princess Cruise tour. Here's a shot of our Kenai Lodge, Copper River. As I mentioned, Wrangell St. Elias National Park, which is the largest national park in the United States. But these two properties, Kenai and Copper River, are a little bit smaller than Denali or McKinley. Whatever you choose with us, you're going to see amazing scenery, wildlife, just so as I said, it's almost indescribable, some of it, just to see these guys up close and personal in their natural habitat. Puffins is one of my favorite. And then the spectacular marine wildlife. It's just an awesome, awesome experience. We really encourage you to go. Don't forget our puppies, but the best way to go is with AAA Travel and Princess Cruises. We really have the best programs for you. And as I said, your AAA advisors at AAA Northway know their stuff and are so happy to work with you. So I thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to hopefully seeing you on board a Princess ship. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.